Hi everyone, welcome. I'm out here preparing to feed my outdoor worm bag. Sometimes I move this bin aside so that I can put it into a place where I think I've got better natural daylight. And every time I move the thing aside, I always find worms underneath it. So I figured, well, it's not the first time I'm doing it. I usually grab up a couple of them and I try to introduce them down into the worm bin. So doing the same thing here today. I'll set these little guys aside until we gain access, and then we'll drop them in there so they could join the party. Now I got a slight update to the estimated worm count in this system. So the system is now 40 days old, and on day 20 when we checked in here, I announced a worm count estimate that was based on numbers that were provided by all the viewers. On two occasions, we went into my compost barrel and we recruited worms in order to populate this system. We came up with an estimate of 1,135 worms living in here. But then I got another estimate, or maybe even two, after I had announced those numbers, and based on the new numbers added to the estimate is now averaged to a slightly lower number, 1,131. And you know, I'm almost wondering if maybe by chance we might have 19 worms here. When I was collecting them up, I had the opportunity to count them, but I didn't take that opportunity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assume that we're just now adding exactly 19 worms to the system, which up until now had an estimated 1,131 worms living in it, bringing us to a nice round number, 1,150. And naturally, if any additional viewers of my video chime in with any new estimates, I'll be adding those numbers to the averaging calculation, and then that'll just throw all the numbers off again, so it doesn't matter that we've got a nice round number here today. So my last check-in was 10 days ago, and it just so happens that every single time we come into this system, always 10 days lapse between check-ins. And today it just worked out that way again, and I was even questioning whether coming back after only 10 days would be necessary, because the feeding they got last time was pretty sizable. We gave them an entire mango, cut in half, right through the seed, and then there were even two fairly large chunks of pumpkin. And you know, if a population of just a little bit over 1,100 is correct for this system, then it might have been a bit of a challenge for them to eat all that in the span of only 10 days. So I am sort of expecting to find leftovers when we get in here. But regardless, I've got some stuff that I need to do away with, and it's a pretty good sized pile of stuff. It's a bunch of potato peels, and I think that'll pretty much make it official that this system will officially at this point be in sort of glut mode, with way too much food floating around in it, not requiring me to come back anytime soon to replenish the food supply. And then I think that will actually allow us to break away from our pattern here that we've been maintaining now since day one, which is to always come back after another 10 days. So now it seems like the more popular food item they received last time must have been the pumpkin, because down by the pumpkin is where I'm seeing a huge quantity of worms hanging out. It almost seems like the mango was of virtually no interest to them. So it is almost sort of like one-stop shopping to come down in here beneath where the pumpkin had been placed to find a good number of the worms that live in here gathered. Well, you know, I'm gonna grab some sort of bedding that we could use down in here. I'll be right back. So now last time too, when we were in here, the system received a pretty good dose of bedding, and I think that's what we're actually seeing here. The bedding was stuff I bought from downstairs. It was a bunch of shredded paper. I had just spent some time shredding newspaper and cardboard and had a pretty good supply of it on hand, so I figured that would become the bedding to go hand in hand with their feeding last time. The stuff I put in just now was just some dry leaves I collected off the ground. Just jammed a whole bunch of it into my hand and brought it over here. So yeah, good amount of worms hanging out here. 1,150 worms. So this stuff, I don't know, is mango, maybe mango's got some sort of citrus content to it, I forget. Maybe that's the reason the worms are taking a little bit of time to get at it, because I see virtually no progress on it, and that's fine. I'm not sweating that. I just thought that there'd be a lot more activity around that, but you know, maybe if you compete mango with pumpkin might just be the more appealing morsel that they'd prefer to work on before working their way over to the mango. So either way, regardless of whether they need it or not, they're getting it. There's pretty good quantity of potato peel I just took out of my freezer, and perhaps have not given it adequate time to thaw out, because it's like a big block of ice, which is fine as well. I don't worry about it. I'm just gonna give it the time that it needs here in the bin to thaw out, and then the worms will make their way into it eventually. So this little pile of worms here and this little pile of worms here, I'd feel bad if I were to plop them directly onto some frozen potato, or frozen anything for that matter. So I'm going to cover up the frozen stuff here really quick before we potentially bring these little guys in to end up on that stuff and be a little bit uncomfortable, or try to keep these little guys happy and comfortable. And here and there's a little bit of leftover stuff floating out here on the top. I'm not too worried about it. Yeah, you can really see that we're very near the capacity of this grow bag here, so it would certainly not be necessary in future check-ins to add bedding. It's just sort of a habit I try to establish when I check in on my systems, and I certainly don't do it all the time. There are always exceptions here and there, but in general it's usually a good idea to include a little bit of bedding at least with each of your feedings, if not a lot of bedding. So I think I've got all the worms off my glove. I think that means we could come right back in with the coverings, and we're done. That was a nice little quick check-in. Relieved me of a little bit of stuff that was taking up space in my freezer, and it also enabled us to keep to the 10-day interval between check-ins. And whether we're going to actually come back in here 10 days from now again on day 50, I don't know. We'll just have to play it by ear. I mean, those potatoes could very well be gone in 10 days, especially if they're having trouble getting into that mango, because I don't think there's much of the pumpkin left. So I don't know, we'll have to see. All right, everyone, that's it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always very much appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.